Have you considered selling your business? You might be a person who wants to sell your business to another employee, or you're looking for another person from outside to come and buy it versus offloading it to another business to be acquired or a corporation or investment group that's out there. There's one big kicker that needs to come into play here to understand the best way to make this transition. And to make this transition, if you are the owner looking to sell your business, we really need to understand what cash flow is available to be able to buy the business. So let's break that down. What does that mean? Most times, people who are trying to sell to someone else, they do not have the capital. This buyer does not have money to purchase the practice. Maybe they can get some financing options. Maybe there's a chance for them to get some capital from some family members. However, it's not enough for what the buyer is expecting or even what the price of the business should be. The biggest part that comes into play here, though, is let's say that you are the seller looking to personally finance this through future profits of the business. They often refer to this as a seller's note, that there is only a certain amount of money at this current time that you can lean on to be able to use towards the repayment of that seller note. So for instance, if I were to go to sell a business that's generating $20,000 a month, but this note that I'm trying to create requires $30,000 a month, well, right out of the gate, the business is not going to be able to afford that payment. And then also the person who's buying the business is going to be in a position to where, well, they're just basically buying a job and also losing money along the way. This can be a deal breaker for a lot of people who are trying to sell, because what happens is that the person who's selling might require a certain amount of money for their business because they're depending on that for their retirement. They've spent their entire financial life just building their business, working in the business, spending the money that it makes, and then one day hoping that the sale of that business is going to be able to fill a big gap in their plan to make sure that they can be able to retire. So when we're really looking to sell to another person, we really need to take a closer look at cash flow. And especially if that person is working in the business already and they are generating a portion of the revenue and the profits, you're going to also have to take into consideration providing a potential deduction or a reduction in the price, because they're not going to pay for what they're producing as well. This is something a lot of owners do not consider until they're actually ready to sell. And usually by the time it's too late. Maybe they're a part in their career where, oh man, I am done. I wanted to be out of this yesterday. And that can be hard for a lot of people who are trying to sell, to where we've seen people where they just close the doors at some point. They just offload things like at a very small dollar amount because they're just fed up with ownership. If you have any inkling, any thought of wanting to sell to another person, this process would be good to start at least at a minimum 5 years out. Perfect world, you're looking at 10 years. And you want to make sure that your books, your profit loss statements, your tax returns, all of that information is great. So then you can come here and tell a story to the person who's potentially buying it so that they understand what they're purchasing, and that you can be able to try to get as much value from it as possible. There are really cool things that you can do to be able to transition ownership to another person who works at the business by creating some type of bonus arrangements and plans in place. So then as they, at some point in the future, there's a lump sum of money that can be used to help buy part of that business. If this is something that you're considering on your end and you're trying to figure it out, you're not really sure where to go with this, at the end of this video, you'll see a phone number. Shoot us a text, give us a call. Someone will reach out to you to coordinate a time so we can chat for a few minutes.